Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Nick the Quick Van Exel, and you rocking with Late Night Lake Show.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to a new episode of the Late Night Lake Show podcast powered by Prize Picks. It is your host, Ricky, and I got my boy Steven back in the building to talk a little Suns, Lakers in-season tournament. These games count now. We're done with the pool play, done with all the round robin, all the friendlies and whatever. The Lakers are coming out of their group stage, and they are not alone. The Phoenix Suns are the runners-up, but due to whatever calculations, real quick, wait, I guess I should just assume. Steven, do you know by way that the Suns made it in, their official calculations of why they qualified?
It was it came down to point differential for those in-season tournament games specifically, and because of how they performed against the Jazz in the games that they played against them, and then the last game that they had that counted for the in-season tournament, I think it was against Memphis if I'm not mistaken. All of that just kind of compiled and allowed for them to get that opportunity to bless us with the opportunity to see Durant and LeBron go against each other again. So I, as a fan, can't knock it. And as a supporter or person that covers either of the teams, you can't knock it either. So, yeah, we're blessed
You
with that.
can't, bro. We're getting LeBron KD for the third time before Christmas. This is stuff that we would only see during they real heydays starting at Christmas, right? KD with most of his battles being on a Western Conference team, whether it was down in OKC or with the Warriors, and then LeBron being in Cleveland and Miami for so long. They'd usually only see each other to start the season around Christmas time. And now we get in part 3. Shout out to KD, top 10 in scoring all time, man. I didn't even realize that KD was knocking on the door, top 10 of scoring. Realistically speaking, before we kind of get into the team outlook on this in-season tournament, KD's got a chance to move up as far as how high in your prediction on the scoring list. Does he have a chance to catch Bean?
That's tough. And it's really like Kobe was great at so much. The fact that he was so consistently available on top of being so great so consistently, like that's the only way you get to the extent of taking these all-time records to the extent that some of these players are. Like John Stockton missed how many games over the course of his career and played how many years. That's why a player like Chris Paul that's been great for a sustained level that's nearly equal just can't match it just because of the games played. So it's all dependent on health with Durant. I think the sky's the limit for him. The way he plays, he doesn't exert or overexert much energy in terms of taking 45 dribbles per possession. He's really optimizing the depths at which he's exerting himself on offense. He scores so easily on top of the efficiency. So if he can stay healthy, I don't think he can't catch Kobe. It'll be tough though, for sure.
For sure. Yeah, he's about
I think people also forget that he had that season that he missed with the injuries and whatnot. So the fact that he's even here even with that whole season that he missed, like that dude is special, man. He's special.
He is special, man. Did it in 1,004 games. He passes Moses Malone to 10th all time. He's got 27,000, right? And to pass Bean, he's going to need to get to 33. It's a decent gap, right? And I think to your point, the main thing that's stopping KD from potentially, flirting with getting into that top 5 is going to be health. And if there's one thing that hasn't been friendly to KD lately, the last few years of his career, it has been health. But we're going to see. Shout out KD. I mean, shout out to us, man. How many top 10 scores that we've seen, in our lifetimes in their prime, right? LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Dirk, Shaq, Melo, and now KD. We're hyped to see how KD continues to grow and move that torch forward and pushing the game forward. You see a bunch of like KD clones starting to pop up, man. I just watched the Lakers play the OKC Thunder, and I got my first look at Chet up close. Boy, he moving a little sniperish, man. I like what I see out of Chet. Have you had a chance to peep his game?
Absolutely. And it's just funny because when KD came into the league, he had that unicorn look to him, being a +7 footer that moved like a shooting guard, like a 6'5" shooting guard, had the handle of a point guard. And now which every year that's passed since he's come into the league, it's become less and less unique. Like it's still him because he's the golden standard and kind of the ring bearer of that type of archetype. But it's becoming less of a anomaly just because the game is evolving. Players skill wise, they're watching film of him. They get in the gym, putting in the work that's required to get to that level, and then ultimately putting themselves in the position to showcase that in the league. And
Yep.
Chet is an offspring of the Durant, the Durant babies in terms of that type of player. That kid is gonna be really good, and he has a lot of dog in him. In addition to
Really
having
does.
some KD type of tangibles to him for sure.
Yeah, OKC definitely got one. And folks, kind of maybe I put him in the back of people's thoughts once he missed all of his first season, right? Technically, this is his rookie season, but his second year since being drafted with that broken foot. And I mean, yeah, Chet gonna be one of them ones that we're gonna be talking about for a long, long time. OKC definitely got one. But
Another
back
one.
to the main topic at hand, part 3, Lakers Suns. This time it counts. The winner of this matchup and the quarterfinals goes and takes a flight off to Las Vegas for a chance to play for that in-season tournament championship. The Lakers won the first 2 matchups. Not OKC. The Suns have not had a healthy roster. That as of right now, especially in those first 2 matchups. They were missing Devin Booker game 1. Bradley Beal was back in the second matchup. He went off, but that Bradley Beal's kind of dealing with some shit. So he's kind of dealing with that back. That seems like it's going to be a problem for a little bit. But you guys got Devin Booker back, and Kevin Durant has been there for all of the matchups. So it ain't gonna be no walk in the park. We expect it to be a dogfight and some really, really, really exciting basketball taking place. Real quick, bro, we gotta do our first stop here. It's the Devin Booker effect. Can you just talk to me about what he had, just his role and his insertion back into the Sun lineup and what it's done for this team and their prospects of this not only in-season championship, but an NBA championship?
Yeah, well, Devin Booker is quite literally the head of the snake for the Phoenix Suns. And I know a lot of people were talking about point guard this, point guard that. And I'm not gonna say it's without merit when you lose a Hall of Fame point guard and one of the just best to ever touch a basketball and Chris Paul, that's gonna automatically leave a void to be filled. However, if you were watching the Suns closely, in the somewhat inevitable moments where Chris would miss games because of injury, especially being an older player, and just kind of the injury history that he's had over the latter end of his career.
Mm-hmm.
And then even more so when he was healthy in his off minutes. Well, who was the one that was initiating the offense and ultimately taking the Suns to the level where they're most optimized? Devin Booker was the one with the ball in his hands.
Yep.
You can go back to note the season earlier in his career where he spent time playing point guard. He was blessed with the opportunity to make mistakes and learn on the fly, and ultimately those opportunities have compiled to now see him as being not just one of the best shooting guards in the NBA, which in my opinion, he's the best shooting guard in the NBA right now. But he's also tandemizing that with being one of the best point guards in the NBA. Now he's still
Yeah.
new to the position to an extent, and obviously you have players like Trae Young, players like Tyrese Halliburton who are lighting the league on fire with scoring and assisting. But Devin Booker is a player that's still somewhat quote unquote learning the position on a high usage level and on a more of a main role. He's getting the job done. The way he's seeing the floor, the way he's filling out defenses for the types of coverages that he sees, the way he's engaging defenders to ultimately open up teammates for wide open catch and shoot opportunities, the way he's manipulating things, it's like everything that he learned under Chris Paul is being applied in real time. And he hasn't played the entire season up until this point, but we're seeing him operate in a lot of ways that we've seen Chris Paul make a Hall of Fame or all-time level career out of. And that's scary, seeing how good of a scorer Devin Booker is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, right? Like, and Chris Paul back during his prime, he was always capable of lighting it up and giving you a 40 piece when needed. But Devin Booker's main thing is assassin, rip your heart out. He'll drop 40, 50, 60, hell, 70 if it really gets to that point. For him to have, and this isn't just like you turn on the switch and now you see that Devin Booker is a great facilitator. This is something that has been building for multiple seasons, and like having a point guard in Chris Paul kind of there and up close for you to learn from him. We're seeing the results of that, man. The Lakers are going to have their hands hopeful with their first look at Devin Booker this season. I do think it helps that having Jared Vanderbilt back from injury. We got his first look a Saturday night. He played about 14 minutes. He looked good. I caught the recaps of the game. I wasn't able to watch it live, but it looks like a guy who's starting to get his sea legs back under him. It's going to be some ramp up time, and I guess what better way to just get your body back in conditioning is to run around and chasing Devin Booker, and if not Devin Booker, Kevin Durant for your matchup when it's an elimination game too. So the juices are going to be flowing, and I think the way that Devin Booker has kind of solidified himself as that he's the co-star. He is the star on most nights, but he is the co-star when you look at it in comparison to Kevin Durant, just because of Kevin Durant's stature and what he's built as far as his legacy in this league, man. I kind of look at the Suns with just a little bit of envy. The Lakers, number 2 should be number 1, has been highly debated since really he's gotten to LA, and that's Anthony Davis. What folks expect out of AD are number 1 scorer numbers on a night in and night out basis, but also with the given fact that he should be the best defensive player on the court every night too. The window or the number of players that fit into that category, as you know, Stephen, is very small. Your best scorer, your best defender, it doesn't really exist that often throughout the league, right? But that's what Lakers fans expect out of AD, and rightfully so or not, he's a top 75 player for those types of reasons. So I do sit, and we're coming off the back of an AD 27, 10, and 5 block masterclass. It's also not 40 though, right? It's also not 50. And I think when fans look at the low scoring output, they kind of miss the impact that he has on the other side of the ball too. When you look at the Lakers and you look at Anthony Davis and LeBron James and that unit that they put together, now going on year 5, right? How do you evaluate them as a threat, not just for the in-season tournament, but in the West in general? Do you think the Lakers have enough firepower to compete with some of these top dog teams?
I do 110% think that they can get the best of anybody on any given night. For the simple fact that, first of all, you have LeBron James on your team. If you have LeBron, you have a chance against anybody, regardless of what the context is. He's just like, if he doesn't have that feel to you as an observer of the game, regardless if you're a fan of him or not, you're just not looking at the game the right way. And that's
right.
You got to do better. You got to do better as a lover of basketball to respect the game enough to understand the magnitude that LeBron is. And even in what season is this for him now? Is this 21?
21. Yep.
Come on, man. And to be jumping from halfway through the paint and transition to be chasing guys down in transition, blocking shots, knocking down 3-pointers the way he is, to be just moving around the floor the way he is. It's unreal. I think they had the stat a couple of weeks ago where he was the only player that at his age to be averaging double digits. And he's not just averaging double digits. He's north of like 25 again. And he's probably going to average closer to 30 by the end of the season once he gets his legs under him and ramps it up. Like, what are we talking about with LeBron? And that's not even to talk about the playmaking and everything else that he does as an anchor and communication and things like that. So that's LeBron James. He's a whole nother topic. We could talk for 5 podcasts on him alone. Anthony Davis being the point of the conversation, he has to be the piece that is taking them to where they're going to be optimized. And I think that's appropriate given where LeBron is. If he can kind of quote unquote cruise control it over the course of the regular season, get to the playoffs healthy, and then ramp it up, that's going to be where they're going to be optimized. But that's all going to be contingent upon Anthony Davis being that hub and everything else that he brings to the offense and his potential. He's not just a scorer. I know a lot of people love to look at his scoring numbers, and yes, understandable. But also, Anthony Davis, when he's at his best, can be one of the best screeners, which is going to open up people like D'Angelo Russell, who has a lot of potential as a scorer. He can unlock that with his screening. Austin Reeves is another player that can work well when he's given an advantage to play in. Anthony Davis can help them out with handoffs, with screens, playing out of the post and playmaking from there. And there's just a lot of layers to Anthony Davis's game. I just don't like that the chief concern with people is looking at the box score and seeing if he had enough points, and that being determining if he is operating as he should or not. That's not fair to him. That's not fair to the team. They have a very solid team where he shouldn't have to be relied upon every night to put up 30, but this should be the aim for him mentally at least. And I just feel like, yeah, if he can get to that point and continue to do all the other things that makes him the superstar that he is and stay healthy more than anything, they have the opportunity.
They absolutely do. I appreciate you appreciating AD's kind of well-roundedness of his game. And you're absolutely right, man. People who are stuck on scoring outputs. Yeah. Is AD's scoring numbers down? Sure. Yeah. He's averaging 23 a game. Y'all complained last year too when he averaged 26 a game that he wasn't doing enough, right? I think there's gets to a point where you have to just understand at this point in his career, what is AD most impactful doing, right? And it's probably staying somewhere in that 24, 25, 26 range, but that's also combined with elite level defense, right? Like Anthony Davis is averaging almost 3 blocks a game. Three, like, and I get it to the common folk who just go to the rec and they play on Saturday mornings, right? Picking up 3 blocks ain't the craziest thing in the world. But these also are the grown ass men being paid a lot of money to come and put this basketball in the hoop, man. And if you actually knew how hard the NBA actually makes defense on players, right? You would appreciate kind of just the beauty in that side of the game, and especially what Anthony Davis brings to the table. Hell, they're already ready to sacrifice Jaren Jackson Jr. for having a slow start this season. Man. They said he went like 3 games without a block, and they were calling that DPOY made out of paper mache, brother. And it's like, well, it's a lot to do. Defense is a lot to do with who you have around you and the flow of the game. And I think that's kind of where I wanted to bring the next topic into, Steve, is Frankie Smokes, who is who's we know him well in Lakerland. He's a defensive-minded coach. I wanted to just straight up ask you, have you seen Frank Vogel's philosophy kind of rubbing off on this team so far? How are they doing defensively?
Well, at this juncture in the season, they're presently 18th in defensive rating, which is lower than I have expected for them to be, and lower than where I ultimately expect them to be when things ramp up in that late stretch past the All-Star break and headed into the playoffs. They have had some highs and they've had some lows. And believe it or not, over the 7-game win streak that they had, that wasn't their best in terms of where they were operating defensively. They were scoring a lot of points and they were going on scoring stretches where teams just can't keep up with them. Now, obviously, naturally, your offense is going to be able to facilitate as a defense for you because you can score so much. But against a team that can potentially score near that rim that you can, like say the Los Angeles Lakers, if you're not bringing it defensively, you're not going to get the job done. And we saw that not necessarily that first matchup, but that second matchup, the in-season tournament game. We saw that in Phoenix, that game when they ultimately gave up the lead that they had early in the fourth quarter, and the Lakers stormed back and stole that win. Cam Reddish knocking down threes, Taurean Prince knocking down threes, Austin Reeves and LeBron doing their thing, Anthony Davis being a defensive player when they needed it most. Like they were just compiling these things. So the Suns defensively, they're still trying to find their identity. And I'm not going to give them the excuse of not having their big three playing any games in terms of being a reason why that hasn't been stamped yet. They just haven't been consistent enough. And naturally, when you have so many new pieces in tow, there's going to be an integration period where the pieces are just kind of ingratiating themselves with each other, building up chemistry, learning within the schemes and things like that. And we've seen Frank Vogel toggle with being conservative with drop, being directional at the point of attack, and also having his bigs up at the level of the screen and just kind of figuring out over the stretches of games and against specific types of guards what coverage they should use and what's going to be most effective. And they've seen some highs in all 3 phases of that, but they just haven't married it together consistently enough to where they're sustaining stops and going on runs like they had on Saturday against Memphis, where they went on a 16-2 run midway through the third quarter and ultimately blew that game out. I did a film session on that recently and just kind of spoke to the things we saw in that run. And that's a template for them. If they can find pockets of the game where they marry the defense with the offense and not the offense with the defense, that's where they'll
Right.
be optimal.
You see that, right, in a lot of young teams that they only get engaged defensively when the baskets are dropping, right?
Yep.
Like I think veteran teams, hell, even the Lakers 2020 championship team, it was like you just said, defense to offense. They played suffocating um defense, and that led to easy transition baskets. When you arm LeBron James with athletes like your Jared Vanderbilts, who you have a strong defensive IQ, your Cam Reddishes, who have been the biggest surprise, obviously, I think not just the Lakers fans, but hell, maybe even the entire NBA. How folks had him written off for dead, and he's revitalized his role with the Lakers. It's once you get folks that LeBron can use at his disposal, and he can sit back and kind of play a little free safety. That's when the Lakers are most dangerous. And I'm wondering, like, what's KD's best utilized role as a team defender? Is he? I don't think he's an all on ball right assassin on the defensive end. But does KD kind of have similar? Like he's best when he's a roamer.
Yeah. So it's not to the extent that LeBron James is, because LeBron is a different type of athlete. He has a different type of physique that allows for him to play through physicality and even dictate with that at times. I
Hmm.
think Durant's most optimized when he can work off the ball. Yes. I think he's great as a communicator, as the low man, in terms of communicating with say there's a pick and roll on one side of the court, he's on the opposite side as the lowest defender. If he's directing traffic in terms of communication with everybody else around it, providing that second layer of length at a 7'5", 7'6" wingspan behind everything else that's going on behind the center, which is Nurkic, who's also a 7-footer with a plus 7-foot wingspan. That's a lot of length, and that takes away passing lanes. And in addition to all of that, that's just speaking in drop coverage. I think Kevin Durant is one of the better switch anchors in the entire NBA. And that's him being able to switch with guys, play with length and space, keep guys contained in terms of if it's not like a big man, if it's a guard or a wing, he's able to slide and stay in front of guys. But even more than all of that, just being that back layer, when you're doing switching, you have to then make up for switches that happen initially behind the play. So let's say a point guard switches with the center out front. If Kevin Durant's on the floor and he's behind all of that, he can help to reorganize the defense and keep the shell intact without giving the offense an opportunity to find the advantage to play outside of the initial play with where the ball is. And that's something he optimized himself with Nick Claxton in Brooklyn. And that's something that he did a little bit with DeAndre Ayton. And I think part of the reason Monty Williams was let go from the Suns was because he wasn't experimental enough with tapping into that versatility that Durant brings. Ayton was super conservative defensively rather than deploying him aggressively against the Nuggets, and I worked
Right.
against them. And we're starting to see that chemistry between Nurkic and Durant just kind of taking on a different look. And I think that's where Durant's going to be optimized, especially as the games grow more meaningful. And we might even
Hmm.
see more of that tomorrow night.
The Late Night Lake Show podcast is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best legal way to play daily fantasy player props in states like California, New York, Texas, and more. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. The best part is you can mix players from different sports. You could take the over on LeBron combined with the under on Mahomes in the same entry. Prize Picks is the easiest way to play daily fantasy because it's just you versus the projected numbers. Just use our promo code LNLS, and any deposit you make can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So go support the brand and go win you some money. It's the best of both worlds. Again, use our promo code LNLS.
They Nurkic was he was express ordered, shipped overnight. That was one of the quickest, +1 deals that I've seen happen. Like, hey, if there's anything that's gonna go down in a Dame trade, Nurkic is going to the Phoenix Suns at the end of the day. Okay, great. And then that ends up what happened, right? Obviously, Aiden is in Portland, but how has Nurkic been? How's his play been so far for you guys?
Well, I mean, that dude, he is I'm gonna preface with this. Context plays heavily into what a player can be perceived like in one location versus how they can be perceived in a different location. context matters, especially when you're not a superstar player. And I think the Lakers have an example of that with Cam Reddish. Everything that he looked like in Atlanta, everything that he looked like and what was said about him in New York, and ultimately what he's looked like with the Lakers is a complete contrast when looking at the comparison from one another. Now, Nurkic is not to the extent that Cam Reddish was in his prior stops, but he has a perception about him of things that he can't do, and those things kind of outweigh what he can do. And when you put him in a context that optimizes what he can do, but also can cover up for what he can't do, he's going to look like a lot better of a player than he may have in a different situation. And I think that's essentially what we're starting to see as the gears turn in his tenure with the Suns. His first 10 games, he looked like a shell of himself compared to what he's looked like over the last 10, where he's averaging 13-ish points, double-digit rebounds, 4 assists on decent field goal percentage, and he's even sprinkling in a three-pointer made while upping that attempt rate from deep as well. He's giving them elements of what you see from Domantas Sabonis with the Kings, and even from obviously Jokic, Denver, in terms of giving them 5-out spacing, and not just spacing as a center that can shoot, but a center that can play make and connect things. He has, in terms of the Suns, most assists in terms of like combos of players. Him and Durant have 28 assists to each other this season, and he's helping to make the scoring load for Durant that much easier because he's able to get him the ball in positions where Durant is optimized, and he's also past that, get him the ball in his post spots. He's able to hit him on backdoor opportunities where obviously Durant's going to be played aggressively off the ball. So Nurkic being able to connect and make things easier for him, as well as with Devin Booker and all of the other Suns players assisting to the second side and things like that, and funneling offense through him and invert things a little bit, is really changing the look of this Suns team. And it's giving them a different layer of offense that they did not have last season, to where it's a positive level of unpredictability and it's a positive level of randomness. And when you can tandemize that with everything that comes with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant offensively, in addition to the snipers that the Suns have now, you're cooking with something.
Yeah, I agree. And Nurkic is one of those guys, like I think you said at the beginning, that don't just evaluate how he is on X roster. That roster is that roster with that coach, and they're in that phase of that franchise's, the window, right?
Yeah.
They were in purgatory for a few seasons, right? We have Dame. Should we trade Dame? Nope, we're going to compete. Well, we're not really competing. We're just not the worst team in the league, right? It wavers. It wavers on players' mentality, their performance from night in and night out. And I think changing of sceneries is always, can be productive and healthy when evaluating a player's impact. So you could see obviously why the Suns wanted Nurkic, and it was that just a different level of offensive IQ. Nothing against Ayton, but Ayton gets ball looking to score. Right. Nurkic gets ball looking to facilitate the rebound, kind of lubricate the offense. And while both can be useful in an NBA roster, this Phoenix Suns team did not need another big bullet in center. They needed a big body that knows how to pass and screen and rebound. So shout out Nurkic for taking care of that. I think, similarly, the Lakers, reinforcements. Obviously, you have Anthony Davis. There's been the Christian Wood signing, which I think Lakers fans generally are still pretty positive about. He has come down a little bit on his shooting numbers, but I think a lot of it has to do with how he's being utilized. There's really no reason why Christian Wood should just be sitting in the corner waiting for corner threes. It just, Lakers similarly are running a 5-out system, which was a little bit different than last season with the 4-out, 1 in with AD. I don't know. It seems like it's leading to a lot more big men in the corner. I saw a Jackson Hayes corner 3 the other day, and I was like, oh God, this is a little ugly. But with the Lakers being as banged up as they've been, especially with their large wing depth, I'm hoping that those shots are kind of replaced with Vando corner threes, Rui Hachimura corner threes, who I think we should expect back for Tuesday's matchup against the Suns. Rui was available to play. He just didn't play. He was trying out the face mask. He got a broken nose, so, I guess there's a comfort adjustment that's coming with that. So, hopefully we'll see him back on the court against KD, because we're going to need him. We're going to need a lot of bodies to kind of disrupt Kevin Durant. And then at the same time, Jared Vanderbilt is probably going to need to spend a chunk of his time chasing Devin Booker. So, the reinforcements are definitely needed. But when it comes to just taking a look at the additions of bigs, you have also your Jackson Hayes, who has been fun. Jackson Hayes is one of those players where it's like, don't expect a lot of high IQ basketball. Just really try to tap in on that energy and athleticism, and hopefully that translates to positive outcomes on the court. So, I think the Lakers will probably still be looking for some big man reinforcements when it comes to the trade deadline. I think, names like Andre Drummond's a little, have started to float out there, somebody that they can look for. But yeah, I mean, just on that side of the ball, I think the Lakers are trying to keep AD as fresh as possible. We'll see. Nurkic is going to have his hands full guarding Anthony Davis, right? Who AD, rightfully so, kind of gets the better end of those matchups. But there's not to say Nurkic is a slouch whatsoever. But really, to me, it's how are those non-AD big minutes playing out? Who are the Suns? I'm sorry, is Bol Bol on the roster? Bol Bol's a Phoenix Sun.
Yeah, he's a Phoenix Sun, but he's not seeing relevant minutes.
Okay.
At all.
Bol Bol's not seeing tickets, guys. As many Lakers fans as they demanded that they get some Bol signings, or just some extremely large, to me, man, I don't know what your opinion is, Steve, but the Bols and the Mo Bambas, I've seen enough. I've seen enough of that. I get it. I know what they are. I know what they're not. If it hasn't worked out and we're about 4 or 5 years in, not to say it will never work, brother, but you're 7-something tall and you're shooting threes? Why don't do that? Get your ass in the paint.
It can't be that exclusively.
Right.
Yeah, it can't be that exclusively. But yeah, Bol is there. So far this season, he's been there for the vibes, and it's been behind Nurkic. It's been Drew Eubanks, who was also his Nurkic's backup in Portland the last couple of seasons, and they've been giving minutes as well to Chimezie Metu, who came over from Sacramento. So those two players have been getting a lion's share. Yeah, they've been giving minutes to the lion's share of the reserve front court minutes have been going to those two. And they've been doing a decent job picking up the pace, adding a little bit more versatility, a little bit more size and athleticism to everything the Suns do on both ends of the floor behind Nurkic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be an interesting matchup, seeing those guys match up with the likes of Jackson Hayes. And it's going to really come down to who's playing better in the minutes where one of the superstars is off the floor. Right. Because I think naturally it's going to be a lot of bashing the heads in terms of the starting lineups going against each other. And that kind of leads me to a question that I have for you. Just because from watching Lakers film over the last couple of hours and just kind of looking at some of the numbers and things like that, we saw obviously earlier in the season they decided to put Austin Reeves back in that 6-man role to optimize everything that he does offensively and give him that liberation to do everything that he wants to do with that second unit while still closing games with LeBron, et cetera, et cetera. The lineup with Max Christie in the starting lineup in 150 possessions, they're plus 26. Yep. They're shooting 41.6% from three. They have 117.9 offensive rating, which is really, really, really good. And in addition to that, defensively, they have a 109.6 defensive rating. So that net rating of plus 50 is 15.4. That's tough again in a sustained stretch now, over 150 possessions spent together. What have you seen from Max Christie in the starting lineup, and how has he just kind of changed the outlook of things, giving them a movement shooter that can play defense a little bit and be active and things like that?
Yeah, so first of all, Max, I refer to him as grandson, mostly because he's from up the street. Did you know he a local boy to us?
Yeah, I did. I knew that, and I also know he went to Michigan State. That's one of my Spartan dogs. I love him.
Oh yeah, that's one of your teams. His brother, I got to check in on his brother. His brother, I think, is playing up in at Minnesota, or this might be his first year there. And they said he might be colder than Max, but we'll see. But no,
Izzo tried to recruit him, and he decided to go to Minnesota rather than Michigan State. So
Oh.
it's a little smoke there.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I wouldn't see Izzo passing up one for the other. So yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, we ain't gonna focus on him. But the one who is a former Spartan has been, this is what Lakers fans expected out of Max at this point now, right? He sat on the bench the entire time last season. Kind of just cooked there, right? This year, especially with the early injuries to Vandy, Lakers fans wanted to see Max ASAP, and that was quickly shut down with the realization that Cam Reddish is going to get all those minutes. And it's like, oh, really? Well, Cam hadn't really established himself as a counted on contributor in lineups up until that point consistently. So that led to a little bit of frustration. Cam ends up going down. Rui has his injuries. Max finally gets his look. And his first, few looks that he had starting, he looked a little it looked a little vanilla. You just didn't notice he was making much of an impact either way. Then I think it was around, I think it was around that Detroit game, really, where he started to see more of, no, not necessarily Detroit, maybe that OKC game. Maybe the OKC game really started to launch his confidence. And Max, it's the three. For him, that defense has always been there. He's always been somebody that you can count on as an on-ball disruptor. He was picking up during the preseason 3/4 court. But folks ain't doing that. Folks ain't got time to do that no more. Max was doing that, right? And I think really why the frustration was starting to set in is because this would be a guy that you would think Darvin Ham, a defensive focused minded head coach, would love to have out there at all times, right? I think what we weren't seeing as fans early on is Max guards ones and twos really, really well. He can guard down. Guarding up is where we started to see a little bit. All right, he might be a little barbecue chicken out there, which, I think we'll probably see some Max on KD instances, and I think Max has an opportunity to at least get a hand up there into the KD air. But at the end of the day, right, not a lot of people could get to disrupting KD. But at the end of the day, we see that Max was probably better suited guarding ones and twos. So that's where his focus has been as far as his defensive assignments. The combination of him out there now with Vandy in stretches, that's Rikers, man. That's 26 in California for us, right? That's lockdown defense where you can't get out of them penitentiary walls. And it's like he's always had them tools from being a former Spartan. Izzo loves his defense, but let's bring it even back before that, bro. He went to the MSL. He's mid-suburban league. He's a suburb kid of Chicago. Them boys eat, breathe, and sleep defense because they have to, right? To compete with those city schools, the athleticism isn't always there. So they drill those teams and those kids at a young age with defense. And now, fast forward to today, Max all grown up, right? NBA minutes, we're seeing those defensive traits shine through. Max has very active hands. His hands are always in the passing lanes, always up in the air, disrupting shots at the very least, right? And that's things that if you don't learn early in your basketball upbringing, that's not going to be part of your DNA because the defense, you kind of got to be wired a little bit to a different frequency to understand what all goes into disrupting another person from achieving their goal of scoring the basketball. So that was a long-winded answer of being Max has always been that dude on defense. It was the fact that his three was starting to drop, right? He made 3 against Houston. He made 2 against OKC. Once that started connecting for his game, that's when that plus minus started to go berserk because he just wasn't scoring out there and it was a little bit hemorrhaging the offensive flow. But now that shot's falling, this is that content that Lakers fans was waiting on.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what I observed. I watched the game, the most recent game against Houston and then the Oklahoma City game as well. So their last 2 games. And it seems like he's been given a little bit more opportunity, and he's not just been given that, he's been running away with it in terms of making an impact with it. And I think that's a layer within everything that the Lakers have going on that they're going to need to continuously click as we start getting into the games that mean more, like these single elimination games, and obviously later on in the season in May and April and May and June, maybe for the Lakers, seeing how he's performing and how he can just add on the margins and just bring a 12 to 15 minute burst of activity and energy in addition to everything else that they have in their top layer. I think finding those marginal opportunities with people like him, with Vando, with Jackson Hayes, and just compiling those and the positives all in one, that's why I think the Lakers team can be optimized.
I think so, man. You think back to that 2020 team, the Lakers had Alex Caruso and
Correct.
KCP out there
Yep.
to
Wes
hound.
Matthews,
Yep.
Rondo. Yep.
to,
Yep.
to hound and funnel those guards into the post. Waiting for them was Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, right? Shot blockers. That this is the same AD from defensively, right? From bubble end. Like he's still as elite on the defensive end. We were missing those pieces of the equation earlier in the year of all right, there's a difference between funneling somebody to your shot blockers and then just opening up the fucking floodgates and just allowing them to go one-on-one against your bigs. You saw some that ends up the ladder ends up into foul trouble for your bigs, and then they stop trying to protect as much at the rim because they want to stay on the floor, and that leads to more easy buckets. Now that you are making someone like your Darius Garlands, right? Your Donovan Mitchells take those extra dribbles on the perimeter. While a lot of folks would, to a blind eye, think that that's cooking. No, they're trying to create more space that players like Max Christie and Jared Vanderbilt are now eating up. And then at the very least, it's a time suck. So when now it's time for them to go and make a move, they only have 6 seconds on the shot clock, 5 seconds on the shot clock, in compared to 9, 10, and 11. And that's all by design, right? And the emergence of Max getting those minutes now with Vandy being healthy, that could be a scary little duo for this upcoming season. Again, I wish Vandy was 1,000% for this KD matchup and Devin Booker matchup, but we'll see. I think Max Christie's going to get a lot of Devin Booker time tomorrow, and I'm excited for it, really. Where I am and where I wanted to wrap the show on, which is it's an update, man. What the hell is going on with Bradley Beal, bro? What's up with the back? How concerned are you about the back? And, is there a chance that this might be bothering him for the entire season?
Well, this is me speaking as somebody that's never had back issues, and knock on wood, that's not anything that I would wish on anybody, because from what I've heard, they can always flare up at any given moment for any given reason. And you think about that and apply it to everything that Bradley Beal does, being a high movement player, one of the players that moves around the court more than anybody else in terms of mileage per game and per season. You need your back for that. And and in addition to that, just being the type of scorer that he is, if you're seeing discomfort, the back is in the center of your body. So any movement patterns that you're getting into, it's gonna impact how well you can do that and how much you can do on a sustained level as well. And just seeing him have these issues, I think context wise, looking at it being so early, we're just now getting to the 20 game mark of the season for most teams. It's still relatively early, so he has time to ingratiate himself with the injury, learn the ins and outs of it, and figure out how to keep himself in a space to where it's least effective, if affecting him at all, in terms of training and things like that. So we're now entering, as of today, the third week, and this is the window of time where the Suns are going to be reevaluating him through tests on the floor, seeing how he looks, seeing how he moves, and seeing how his body responds to the stresses that a game is going to demand for the type of player that he is. So I don't think we see him in the in-season tournament game, but I do think there's a chance that if the Suns do advance, we may see him in the championship game. And if not, going into next week in their game Tuesday against the Golden State Warriors, he could potentially be back for that game.
Nothing like a trial by fire. Welcome back, Brad. Go chase Steph Curry around and all that stuff. So we'll see, man. Yeah, I mean, Brad's he's one of my favorite players to watch. Even his years in DC, kind of just cooking away. Like it was still fun. You would still check the ticker and be like, "Oh, Bradley Beal dropped 40 over there. That's okay. All right, get after it." And then we thought when this trade went down, it's like, all right, That's a big get. That you know, and especially for what he was acquired for, we were like, the Suns really got a chance to do some damage right now. And unfortunately, he just has not been able to participate. That's kind of, it gives me some vibes. And I'll knock on wood, 'cause I don't speak no ill on nobody, but Lakers traded
Yep.
for a bad back Dwight Howard, and that shit didn't work out. Right. Lakers also traded for a bad back Steve Nash, and that shit definitely
Mhm.
did not work out. So, you know,
Mhm.
I mean, Dwight was still within the prime of his career. Steve Nash was getting towards the tail end. Bradley Beal was somewhere in the middle of his prime, getting maybe a little bit towards the end of that window because of injuries. But it just goes, history shows you, man, you got to take them back injuries seriously, and you cannot rush back from it because it will flare up at some point in time, and usually when it's the least opportune time, and now you got to start this whole shot clock all the way over. So, you know, it sounds like there's a chance you might see Brad Beal next week for that Golden State game. That works out for me, at least. You know, who needs the in-season tournament money? You a max player, bro. Don't even worry about it. Let Harrison get them, not Harrison. Let Grayson get them shots up over there for you, bro. But
But
yeah,
I
man.
think you just mentioned a point to reference though, because the way the Suns built out their roster, obviously you never want to have one of your best players not in the lineup, but they built out their roster to where it's layered to where, okay, so you don't have Bradley Beal, what do you pivot to? You mentioned Grayson Allen. They also have Eric Gordon. Like there's pieces that you can put in that position that are not necessarily going to give you the same thing. They can give you something to kind of bridge that gap so that it's not as dramatic of a fall off in production. And I think again, when you're building a team, you have to compensate for inevitable injury. Players
Mhm.
always get hurt. Freak accidents happen, you know, the things that are just unpredictable. So if you're not putting yourself in a position where you can plug and play players and not take the entire shoulder and the brunt of that lost player, you're not doing it right. So I think the Suns, in addition to the big names and the things that they've put on the roster, they have puzzle pieces that they can put in that place to keep the ship afloat.
Yeah. And well, shout out Eric Gordon. Shout out Eric Gordon for
Yeah.
you know, just coming alive and being a counted on dude. And that was one of the big ones that the Suns, you know, that was the big signing, like outside of the crazy trades they had. That EG
Mhm.
signing, I think everybody knew that that was an important ad for them. And then Grayson Allen, you know, obviously a very volatile player with how your opinions are on him, but the boy can put the ball in the basket when he needs to. So and he's a pesky defender. He's a disruptive player, and I think that's part of the reason he pisses folks off. But in any event, the Suns' depth, you know, they don't have an embarrassment of riches over there as far as the depth department, right? Y'all got to use what you got and hope that everybody max out on their potential. So far so good on that end. So we just gonna leave it there. We're gonna leave this up to y'all, Lakers fans, Suns fans. Let us know how y'all think the in-season tournament quarterfinal game is going to go down. Let us know in the comments down below. Steven, appreciate you as always, bro, for sliding through, talking a little Lakers Suns with us, and hopefully the fans enjoy just the knowledge that you be dropping on them, man.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you. I'm always down up for opportunity to talk hoop, especially with somebody that's talking from an unbiased perspective. So salute to you and your platform that you have here.
Y'all hear that? Unbiased. The Laker Propaganda Network is unbiased information. Thank you. I'll be clipping that out and sending it to all folks who
And make
accuse
sure you
me of
send me
being
a check
biased.
too, man. Make sure you send me that check.
You're right, exactly. So cut the check with that too, brother. So, all right, bro. I'm gonna get you out of here, Steve. Appreciate you, man. And for everybody else, we will see y'all after the Lakers Suns quarterfinal series, quarterfinal do or die game. It's win or go home. The winner is heading to Vegas next. So should be fun, man. We'll talk on the timeline, and we'll catch you guys next time on the next episode of Late Night Lake Show. With Steven, it's Ricky. We'll see y'all. Peace.